It's a bit pun-believable how punishing and unpunny it can be listening to puns for a 20-pun-minute pun time. Pundeniably, it gets repundant being punched to the wall while you're feeling punder the weather with a punny nose. Frankly, it's been pun before and it's not pun anymore. It's pun-bearable. Punderstandably, you'd rather be watching Little Miss Punshine, Cool Punnings, Pun's Labyrinth, Tears of the Pun, The Punning Man, or such horror classics as Puntasm or Toby Hooper's Pun House. Even a gay pun would be puntastic by comparison. Still, you find yourself punderstruck, staring down the barrel of a pun like a member of the pun dead. As you ponder your existence, you realize you've come pundone, and that's a punderstatement. So I just a few minutes ago finished watching Letterkenny Season 7. I'd been anticipating this for most of the year. It's very easy to just marathon the first 6 seasons because each season only has about 6 episodes. It's like now we've had kind of an entire year to wait for this new season, so there's been a lot of hype. And now Hulu has picked it up and it has an American audience, so it's gotten kind of big time now. And that's sort of somewhat noticeable, honestly. Now, I'm just going to say I did like this season. I didn't think I was going to like this season until today, because today was the day that I watched the last 2 episodes, and the last 2 episodes are fire. But, they tried a few new things in this season, and I respect that, because nobody wants to watch the same redundant shit over and over and over again. But they did this thing, Crack an Egg, something like that. It was basically like a show that all the main characters who hang out at the farm stand, instead of hanging out at the farm stand this season, they do this like public access show where people call in and just ask them for advice because they're sick of giving people advice. So they're like, all right, we'll dedicate like 1 hour of our time every week to just answer these people's stupid questions. It was a funny idea, but as I'm watching it, they spent a lot of time like there in that room with that, and they had the same dude, Jared Queso, I'm gonna say Queso because it's 2 E's. He's basically doing all the people who are calling in, and he does like different levels of voice. There's like the Shorzy falsetto, and then there's kind of like just everything in between, and it's always him calling it. I'm sort of like, did they have a lower budget this season? Because they're spending a lot of time doing this, and I mean, this is a big chunk of a lot of episodes. I feel like they just kind of rapid fire filmed half the season in less than a week, just in this one room with all these characters, and they just overdubbed it later with Jared Queso's voice. There's a few things like, for example, McMurray. Initially, I'll get back to McMurray, but he's been sort of like Stiflered, you know what I mean? Or Freddy Kruegered, in that he's a very funny character, but as he's gotten more popular, he's sort of become a bit more of a caricature of himself. Like, in the earlier seasons, it's sort of like he did the whole clenched jaw thing. He's sort of like, now hold on a second, boss hog, you didn't let me finish, but and it wasn't just this season, it was actually in the season 6 preceding it, where he starts doing like the full up like duckbill platypus, like, oh yeah, and it's like a lot more exaggerated. There's less subtlety, it's less funny. And the reason why I say Stifler and Freddy Krueger is because, in American Pie 2, Sean William Scott kind of stole the show as Stifler, and he did such a freaking amazing job. But then when they did American Wedding, it was almost sort of like, all right, how are we going to top Stifler in this one? And it was like an almost like, Dude, Where's My Car? Where he had that like sloth look, like he was trying too hard. And Freddy Krueger, obviously when Dream Warriors came out, they were like, oh, hey, this guy's charismatic and we can give him one-liners and put a little bit of camp in with the horror. Let's, just skyrocket the camp in the next couple sequels, and yay, Freddy Krueger. Basically the same thing with McMurray, and it did kind of continue for the moral majority of this season, even though he wasn't in it that much. And that's another thing, like, there was a lot of like periphery characters that just kind of made appearances in this season, and it really seemed like they were coming to the end of their rope. My initial impression was that it's sort of like, oh, okay, guys, we got an American audience now, don't you know? Sorry, that's probably more Minnesota than Canada, but, all right, we gotta, pull out all the stops and do something comfortable and kind of, we gotta ramp it up for the American audience, and now Australia's watching our shit, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's kind of like how I figured the whole thing was, because it seemed a bit lazy. And there was one episode in particular, Nut, The plot of this episode, and I mean, like, really, this isn't a spoiler. This will actually save you, like, about a half hour of your time. The plot of the episode is that Squirrely Dan watches a porn, and the porn disturbs him, and he tells his friends about it, and then his friends watch all their disturbing porn, and then he feels better by the end of the episode. That is the plot of the episode. Now, I mean, within that plot, yes, there are a lot of funny things that you could do, but I swear to God, the entire episode, scene after scene after scene after scene after scene after scene after scene was puns. Just puns up the ass. And Letterkenny has good puns. It's always had good puns, but it's always been kind of like spaced apart. And to hear nothing but puns for like a solid episode, I mean, it was like actually quite annoying. I won't hold it fully against this season because I also thought that the Fart Book episode from season 1 was kind of similar in that it was really just childish, just obnoxious humor, and it didn't really go anywhere or do anything. Throughout the majority of this season, though, it wasn't just that one episode. Throughout the majority of this season, though, not a lot happens. You know, there's always shit going on, and there's shit going on in different places with different characters. But it's sort of like in this season, everything is kind of centered around the main people who are usually hanging out at the farm stand, except there's no farm stand anymore. So, undeniably, it kind of didn't quite feel like Letterkenny. Now again, I'm giving this season a lot of shit right now. I really am. But having just watched the last 2 episodes today, it brought it right back. I almost feel like they did it on purpose, like they changed everything up to make you kind of be like, and then like they brought classic Letterkenny back in the last 2 episodes with the hockey game and with Tanis. Anyways, her character is awesome, and there was a really awesome hockey game. Shorzy wasn't in the moral majority of the series, but he comes in more towards the end, and there's a lot of characters that you haven't seen for a while. So they really did successfully change it up. And then even towards the end, McMurray comes in and says, you know, like, hey, we got to help Derry. He's our friend kind of a thing. And it's sort of like, because they've been ragging on McMurray the entire time. And then he really proved like what a good friend he is. And God damn, was there ever a cliffhanger in this season. It's really, really awesome. Which makes me hopeful, which makes me excited for new Letterkenny. And I'm happy to see that they're willing to switch it up a little bit. Honestly, this probably was my least favorite season, but I say that with love. I'm not shitting on the fact that they tried to do something different and it didn't always work. I really still did like the way that they capped it off, and I guarantee you that knowing the way it ends, if I go back and watch it from the beginning again, some of the stuff that bothered me won't bother me as much. This is such a zany, wacky show with so many different ideas and crazy characters and so many different things happening that, you know, they can lose focus for a little while. You know what I'm saying? And they can still get back on track. There's a lot that they can do with this. So I have great hope for the future of Letterkenny. But yeah, you know, it had a rough start. I would say it probably was my least favorite season of Letterkenny so far. But the last 2 episodes make it all worth it. And yeah, man, love this show. If you guys haven't seen Letterkenny, for love of God, check it out. What's the matter with you? Support our Canadian brethren. And that's all she wrote.